Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Candidate Forum put on by the League of Women Voters of Glenview-Glencoe. My name is Lorri Grainawi, and I am from the League of Women Voters of Arlington Heights, and I'm also the Mental Health Issue Specialist for the State League. This forum is for those seeking to be Village President of Northbrook. The candidates have agreed to abide by the rules set forth prior to this forum. The candidates are Kathryn Ciesla and Eugene. For today's virtual format, we directed those interested to email questions to the League in advance. We will do our best to read all questions, time permitting. The candidates will have 90 seconds to respond in alternating order. The order of who is going to start was determined just prior to the beginning of this forum by drawing numbers. Closing statements will be heard in reverse order of the introductory statements, and those will also be 90 seconds. League of Women Voter members will keep time, and candidates are asked to strictly adhere to the time limits. Candidates, please keep track of the timers, and when you see the stop sign, your time is up. Okay, let's get started. Giving the first introduction is Kathryn Ciesla.
Hello, and thank you very much. My name again is Kathryn Ciesla, and I want to thank the League for the opportunity to be here and thank the League for hosting. This is my third candidate forum, and it's been great every single time. I want the community to know that I'm finishing my third term as village trustee. That's rounding out 12 years. I've served, I'm the senior trustee as we sit here today. I've served on the Administration and Finance Committee for 12 years, and for the last 4 years, I've been its chair. I've continued to promote fiscal responsibility and economic efficiencies. I'm proud to say that during my entire tenure as a trustee, we've maintained our AAA bond rating. We've maintained 40% reserves. We haven't dipped into a single reserve, even though we've gone through 2 economic recessions, one we're currently in. I want to say that I'm a proponent of open, honest, and transparent communication. I like hearing the opinions of Northbrook citizens, even if they're different than mine, because I think we come to better decisions when we hear the input of all of our residents. I am an attorney in my professional life. I'm appointed by judges in Cook County to be an advocate for children. And so I act in that capacity as an attorney. I lived in Northbrook for 20 years. I live here with my partner and my 2 children. My oldest daughter, Kylie, is a freshman in college, and my youngest daughter, Jenna, is at Glenbrook North, and she's a junior. I come from a philanthropic family, a family that taught me the lesson that it's important to give back. So the scope of my community service as a Northbrook trustee and hopefully as village president is with that in mind, that it's my responsibility to help be a steward of the community. So I thank you again for the opportunity today.
Thank you. Thank you. Eugene.
How are you, Lorri? Are we ready?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. All right. Susan, Lorri, thank you very much for having me here today in the League. We really appreciate this. I've been a resident of Northbrook since 1984. My kids were born here, raised here. I love the school. It's been very great. I've also, for the most of my adult life, have been a first responder. I served as a firefighter paramedic on the Chicago Fire Department. I spent 20 years as a paid on call firefighter for Northbrook. I also worked part-time for the Cook County Sheriff and for the Forest Park Police. So I'm very much in favor, obviously, of law enforcement as a first responder. United for Northbrook was formed because we didn't feel there's been transparency in the village. We don't feel there's been fiscal responsibility in the village. And we don't feel that the police are being treated right. And our first responders, we think that they're starting to defund them a little bit. And as a first responder, and all, of course, again, we're very much in favor of that. I was also village president from 2005 to 2009. We accomplished many things. We did a lot with sustainability. We opened the Willow Festival Shopping Center. We had the land secured for a new water tower in town. and we did many, many objectives. So I have a lot of experience. I have a lot of business experience. I'm in the alarm industry for manufacturing security equipment. So between my business, my governmental, and the time in the village, I have a very good, well-rounded background. Sorry, my voice a little, losing a little in the voice. And and in the village, as a former village president, very well known, and I feel we can accomplish a lot today.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to jump right into our questions. The questions are also 90 seconds. The topic for the first question is general business climate. And Jean, you'll go first in answering this question. Many village businesses have struggled or closed over the last year due to the pandemic. What do you see as the village's role in making sure that those businesses that have remained open not only survive, but thrive?
Well, I've been much of a very business advocate for many years, very, very pro-business. What's happened, I believe, since the pandemic, a lot of the towns have got together with their businesses, discussed what they could do to help them, whether it be sales tax relief or some sort of tax relief going on. And unfortunately, Northbrook didn't do that. I've talked to many businesses during this time, and as we talked to the businesses, they were unaware of anything the village was doing. Now, I understand the village did have a program, but it was not related out to the village. So there was no transparency in it. And this has come from many, many businesses. I would sit down with the businesses, figure out what we can do to help them, talk on both ends, and then give them some relief. We want them to flourish. We want new businesses to come in, and we have to court new businesses to come in. We used to have a business development director. Unfortunately, we don't anymore. And I believe we need that again. We have to save our crown jewel, Northbrook Court, which is a total disaster now. And we spent a lot of money on things that are just not necessary. Like the Grainger property was bought on a whim. Green Acres needs to be developed. So a lot of different things we got to do. But the main thing is we sit down with all of our businesses. We talk to them in a forum and say, what can we do to help you? What would be the greatest thing to keep you going? And then again, bringing in new businesses. I think that's very, very important.
Thank you. Kathryn, you're muted. Kathryn.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate this opportunity to help educate Mr. Marks and the community with respect to what we've done, because he's really misstating the facts. The community, what we did is we put aside $250,000 in the Northbrook Strong Grant Program, and we helped local businesses reopen. In addition to that, we provided PPE to businesses. We provided masks and hand sanitizer. From the very get-go, we partnered with the chamber, and we used the chamber as a conduit, not only to help us gather information, but to help us communicate with businesses. We promoted businesses on social media. We changed our regulations to allow liquor license carryouts, lane closures for pickup and drive-throughs. We've done all of those things. And what Mr. Marks is indicating is simply not true. Northbrook has done an outstanding job supporting its businesses. The community has been exceptionally receptive, and I think the proof is in the pudding, right? There were dozens of businesses that applied for the grant money, and there were dozens of businesses that received the grant money. So I'm not sure who Mr. Marks is talking to, but I'll tell you, there are quite a few businesses who really benefited from what we did, and will continue to do it because that's what we need to do. And I'll tell you that we got the budget figures for our third quarter, and our sales tax revenues are 8% higher than what we estimated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, for the next question, we're going to start with you, Kathryn, and the topic is resident input in village government decisions. There have been questions about the degree to which village residents are given a say in major decisions made by village government. Can you please explain your views on community input and your ideas for the best way to involve the community?
Sure. Communications is one of the things that I've really pushed starting from the very beginning. During my 12 years as a village trustee, we've redesigned our website 2 times to make it more user-friendly. We've taken our meetings off of just the cable television, and we put them on the internet, and we broadcast our meetings on Facebook. So we're really getting out there more. When Mr. Marks was president, the only way the village newsletter was published was paper. As you know, people get their information in so many different ways. So we've got different programs, Northbrook Notify. We've got the e-newsletter. We've got a lot of different ways to reach residents. And I think that's critical. And so I think what you've seen as we have been changing with the times, and that's what we continue to do. So I take issue with any claims that things haven't been transparent, because we've done as much as we can to reach out. One of the complaints recently has been from Mr. Marks about the affordable housing initiatives. We had over 18 months, an unprecedented 14 public meetings on affordable housing. It was outstanding. I'm sorry Mr. Marks only appeared at the last one. It would have been great to get his input outside of that. But I can tell you that the number of letters we received from village residents, the emails and the participation has grown tremendously.
Thank you. Gene.
Well, I thank Ms. Ciesla for her comments, but that's why we're running, because there hasn't been any transparency. She spreads misinformation, and it's not true. Most people in the village of Northbrook didn't even know about the affordable housing meetings. We had a person, Mr. Holt, who had over 900, almost 1,000 signatures that wanted to put this on a ballot. And through a technicality, he was minus a few signatures. And of course, they threw it off the ballot. Ms. Ciesla was supposed to be on that committee to talk about it. She reclused herself because she said she's running. If she can't answer the tough questions when she's running, she can't answer the tough questions as village president. So if 900 people or 1,000 people, residents, want you to do something, it should go on a ballot, because I'm sure there was tens of thousands more. Almost everybody I talked to knew nothing about the Affordable Housing Act. So there's no transparency in the village. When I was running, yes, we only had a newsletter because nobody had they had the computers with all the different things on it. But I personally wrote a column every month, an answer to the citizens. And we plan on having office hours to talk to the citizens to be more transparent. We want to get residents' opinions on almost everything that they do. That's transparency, and that's where we stand.
Thank you. Gene, for the next question, you will go first. And the topic is making downtown Northbrook more accessible and more attractive. There is discussion of making downtown Northbrook more walkable and bike friendly. What changes, if any, do you think need to be made to make the downtown safer, more accessible, and more attractive to visitors?
Well, I think the downtown is very safe. It is walkable, but it really needs to be changed. That's the age-old question I've had since before I ran in 2005. And there's a lot of things that can be done. I actually have blueprints still from builders back then on how to change the downtown. We've talked about where the shopping center is, where Walgreens used to be, and Marcello's and everything, about turning the center around and building condos above it. The whole thing is having livable, walkable communities. The village spent $8.3 million on a whim, and President Frum even said we had no plans, stated on a meeting, and it's sitting there. We could take and develop that, get some builders, develop it, put in some possibly affordable housing for our seniors and our disabled. We could put retail in. We might be able to move things around downtown, or just as where the townhouses were built at Sherman and Waukegan, that should have been mixed use. And instead we're putting just housing in. I mean, housing is nice downtown, but you need mixed use. So we need a livable, walkable community. So there's a lot of different things we could do, but I want public input on how it can be changed. There's basically 3 landlords downtown. We could talk to them, work with them, create some incentives, and try and make Northbrook downtown a much nicer community. So again, we want public input. We want to sit down with the public, see what their feelings are, work with them, and get a nicer downtown.
Thank you. Kathryn.
Can you do me a favor and repeat the question?
Absolutely. There is discussion of making downtown Northbrook more walkable and bike friendly. What changes, if any, do you think need to be made to make the downtown safer, more accessible, and more attractive to visitors?
I too agree that I think the downtown is safe. But one of the things that you'll notice in the draft budget that we're going to bring forward in the April meeting, the board meeting, is that we've allocated almost $200,000 for streetscape renovations in the downtown. In addition to that, we've planned for bike and pedestrian improvements all over town, about 7 areas, including the Skokie Valley Trail. That construction will start on that trail. I think a lot will help is if we continue to have outreach, for example, with the Park District. We've got to partner with the Park District to be able to use the Village Green. There's money in the budget for the event like Friday Night Flights. We've got to continue to do those kind of events. I bet everybody went downtown and looked at the holiday lights this year and loved it, right? We've invested in doing that, and those lights are going to be on all year to attract people to the downtown during the summer days. One thing that Mr. Marks neglected to talk about is that the village board last year, we did a downtown study. We hired a consultant to come in and address the issue of parking in the downtown, walkability, and planning for all of the things, including Grainger. I'll correct Mr. Marks in that Grainger cost the village $8 million, not $8.3 million. The price was renegotiated to deal with some environmental issues.
Thank you. Okay, and for the next question, Kathryn, we'll start with you. And the topic is new village manager. So the village apparently is seeking a new village manager. What are the key qualifications for this position? And do they differ in any way from the qualifications of the former manager?
I think they have to differ, right? Times are different. So we need to look at things in a different way. This person will be coming in during a global pandemic. We talked about a little bit earlier the issue of communications and outreach and getting to residents. I think, I've looked around, I observe other municipalities. Some village managers have blogs, some have Twitter accounts, some involve themselves in Rotary or other community organizations. So I think it's important to look for some of that. But one of the things that we did was we sent a survey, or we have a survey going. We sent a postcard to every single Northbrook household. We've put information out on social media and in the newsletter, asking for community input on what the community wants in a village manager. We'll incorporate other stakeholders in town, including folks from the schools and the parks and the library and business and the chamber, to help us develop some criteria and qualifications. This is the epitome of transparency, isn't it? To ask for all of this community feedback to get a manager that fits our situation. And I think the keys here are to get a village manager who will help guide us through the next 5 years, which is promoting efficiencies, strengthening our economy, incorporating the sustainability initiatives that we have, and really communicating with the public in a different era.
Thank you. Gene, same question.
Yes, Ms. Ciesla brings up about transparency. There was no transparency until we brought it up, just as the Grainger and many different things. They came back with a postcard only to try and pull the transparency thing. The village manager is an important position. The last village manager who's there now, Rich, I hired during my team. Actually, he was the assistant manager and they wanted to go outside and I said, no. I said, we need to take from within. Jeff Rowitz, who is the assistant manager now and CFO, was in there also from before. So what did the board do now? They did buyouts. They offered the village manager, the assistant manager, the police chief, the 2 deputy chiefs. They're taking our entire experienced staff with hundreds of years of experience. We put it together and getting them all to leave at once. That leaves our village with no experience. The village manager we have now is great. He can actually break in and help get a new manager. So is the assistant manager. But why would you take all this experience and get them to buy out and leave all at once. Police, fire, our main staff in the hall, everybody is leaving. This is horrible what they've done to the village. They've killed all experience. And I just don't get it. I just don't get it. They talk about saving money. It's not saving money. They talked about, like, on the police chief, excuse me, they're offering the new chief a higher salary than the old chief. How is that saving money? And we lost all this experience. And it's a shame. And I'm worried about the safety of this town. I'm worried about this town running. So even when we get a new manager, he's gonna have to train all these other people.
Thank you. Okay, you've both mentioned in other questions the Grainger property. So this next question is about that. And I don't know how much it costs, so I'm gonna read what's here and we'll just leave it. It was over $8 million. So the Grainger property was purchased by the village over 3 years ago for over $8 million and has remained unused since. So the first question, which I can guess answers to, is do you think this was a sound decision? And what viable uses do you see for the property? Either to bring it back onto the tax rolls, or is it, perhaps other uses? And Gene, we're going to start with you.
The Grainger property was an awful mistake on the village's part. They bought it on a whim, and as President Frum said in a board meeting, we had no idea. And so the Grainger property, then they said they wanted to move the train station, but they said that before they even talked to Metro. And now we're sitting on a property, okay, if it was 8.3 or 8 million, it was 8 million, and they admitted there was environmental issues. Why would you buy a property with environmental issues? We lost people working there. We lost taxes on the property. We lost people that were spending money in town, shopping and eating. Yes, now that we have it, we have to redevelop it. And there's a good chance, a good place to do retail, to possibly do some condos, possibly do some senior housing that we really need, and for disabled. So we do have to develop it. We got to bring money back to the taxpayers. Our budget now is $8 million in arrears. Why? Because they bought the Grainger property. And it's proof. Read the budget. It's there. We read it, and it says it's $8 million behind. So it was a very, very bad move on the village. I know Kathryn will shake her head and give you some misinformation. That's the truth. We have facts to back it up.
Thank you. Kathryn, same question.
Sure. Let me just get some facts, some real facts out. In August of 2017, CB Richard Ellis contacted Northbrook and said that Grainger was planning to move to Lake Forest. This was not only broadcast publicly, it was done in news outlets. On 8/30 of 2017, Metro and staff had a conference call about the possibility of the relocation of the train station. On September 26, 2017, a month later, Metro, Sandy Froome, village manager Rich Narstead, and village staff had a meeting with Metro to discuss moving the train station. On January 23rd, 2018, the village entered into a contract to purchase the property for $8.3 million. Mr. Marks wasn't at that meeting and didn't send any communications about Grainger at that time. On May 8th, 2018, 4 months later, the village, we had a meeting and we reduced the purchase price to $8 million because of the environmental issues on the property. That $300,000 was the cleanup remediation cost. Purchasing Grainger was an outstanding opportunity for us because it helps us control the downtown. Mr. Marks said this initially. Everybody talks about the downtown. Northbrook has gotten several calls from developers who want to purchase the property. We will make money on the property, absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, Kathryn, you'll be the first to answer this next question, and it's about affordable housing. The village recently passed a set of ordinances addressing the availability of affordable housing for seniors, those with disabilities, and the village workforce. How would you plan to implement or enforce the new ordinance?
The ordinance enforces itself, right? So when a developer comes into the community, the developer knows step one, game one. that the requirements are for 15% of the development to have affordable units dispersed throughout. So that's easy. For some smaller developments, the developer would be able to pay a fee in lieu of the affordable units, and those monies would be put into a fund. The Northbrook Court project is going to be depositing $750,000 into that fund for us to start working on some initiatives on our own. For example, the village met with a gentleman who does affordable homes for people with disabilities. He built one in Glenview most recently. And these not-for-profits get grant money to build affordable units. And so what I would suggest and consider is that we need to make it a priority to finish that plan for the affordability fund and make certain that people that we get that going. The next thing I think we have to focus on is really conveying to folks that this costs the taxpayers $0. Zero. It doesn't cost the taxpayers anything. There's no such thing as Section 8 housing or anything of that nature. And I think to spread that information is blowing the dog whistle.
Thank you. Jean, same question.
Affordable housing, workforce housing is very necessary. What's more necessary is for our seniors and our disabled. Of course, they specifically left that out of the ordinance. And according to the development director, Tom Papardo, I talked to him before he left, he said the way this ordinance is written, it's financially impossible for a builder to build. That's for their own development director that left. There's a lot of problems, a lot of flaws in this. And they're talking about like Northbrook Court putting in the fund. That builder walked away. So I guess maybe if the new builder comes in willing to spend the money, it's kind of crazy. So we do need to work on affordable housing, but they also want to tie in not Section 8, but low income housing. They're trying to pass an ordinance where you can build accessory buildings in the back of houses, 750 square foot buildings in the back of houses. I can't see if somebody bought $1 million house here and 3 of their neighbors said this, they'd really appreciate that. So we have to relook at the affordable housing plan, make it so it's financially possible for the builder. If we don't get building here and build up, property taxes will go up because when there's no development and no commercial, then the property taxes for the people go up. If they go with their existing plan, we're going to lose money in taxes and property values are going to go down. It really has to be rewritten. I originally did it in 2005. We didn't implement it, but also they talk about implementing this. Why didn't they do it at the 770 building? Why didn't they do it at the 1000 Waukegan? It's amazing on those projects from friends that built, they never did it.
Thank you. Okay, Jean, you'll be first for our next question. And the question is about village sustainability and climate action plan, a topic we haven't touched on yet. The village's new sustainability plan will soon be released. How would you work to implement the climate action planning team recommendations? And the second part of it is, what should the village of Northbrook do to significantly decrease its carbon footprint?
Lorri, I was very active in that. I was on the U.S. Conference of Mayors Climate Action team. When I was also last in the village as the village president, we worked on many different things. We changed all the stoplights to LED. We approved a recycle facility that recycled 95% of teardowns. I received awards from the lieutenant governor. We also had us buy wind power credits on the grid that cost the average consumer in Northbrook about $1 a month. We were the largest user of wind power in the entire state of Illinois. Why the village stopped that, I have no idea. I've been a very big proponent of sustainability. We need to put in some more electronic chargers around. We have some at Northbrook Court. There used to be one in back of Village Hall. I'm not even sure if it's still there anymore, but those are all the things we need to do. And I'd work with all the people around. In fact, Mayor Daley, when Richie Daley was in, him and I spoke not only around the city, we also spoke around the country together. I was also invited out to Robert Redford's ranch, and we had with all the major mayors around the country, we had a seminar on how to do sustainability. I wound up getting tax credits for buying sustainable vehicles with propane at that time. So we did a lot on sustainability, and I would continue that effort. I'm very, very big into sustainability, and we can do a lot more with Northbrook.
Thank you. Kathryn, same question.
Sure. I think one of our problems, and I hope we touch on it, is perception. Mr. Marks is not a major mayor in a major city, or wasn't. Northbrook is a small town, and we have to look at it like that. With respect to sustainability, over the last 18 months, we've been working on a climate action study and plan. It's similar to our bike plan or our water plan or our stormwater plan. So it's a plan that would implement sustainability initiatives into our budget over the next several years. And so one of those things that you saw if you watched our draft budget meeting yesterday is that we've actually budgeted for next year for a person to actually be a dedicated sustainability employee in Village Hall to further sustainable initiatives. We've increased our 50-50 tree planting program in the Parkway to come up with 500 trees to plant around town. How we recycle at this point is simply not enough. I brought to the village the textile recycling program, the orange bags. I think if Mr. Marks was truly committed to sustainability, he wouldn't have run away from the conversation with Go Green. He would have interviewed with them. Go Green has been an integral part of our community. They come to every board meeting and provide us with a green minute and talk to us about how we can change our lifestyle to promote sustainable initiatives. I think it's also important to think about sustainability as an economic driver. And
Thank you.
I have to leave it there.
Okay, well, you'll be the first to answer the next question, which is
Okay.
going to be about community civility.
Okay.
So there's a continuous divide in our country that it seems to be spilling over into our local community. One example is the reaction of residents last summer when they shouted at each other across the village green over the COVID scoreboard. What will you do as an elected official to maintain civility in our community?
I think the first and most important thing is that people are heard. Everybody needs to be heard. We can't shut people down because their ideas are different than ours. Remember, you can have an idea and you can bring it to your group at work, your cohort group, your colleagues, or even within your family with your spouse or your partner. And as you vet that, and as you investigate, and as you research, and as you hear from people, ideas are better generated. And I think a lot of the frustration is eliminated when people get to participate and contribute. You know, we're not all going to agree 100% of the time, but our community does have consistent values: education, family, inclusion, sustainability. Those are our common values. And I think if we focus more on the positives, we will certainly be able to get through the negatives. I think that even though it was ugly on that corner, nobody got in fights. People didn't hurt each other. Nothing was thrown other than insults and words. And in America, sometimes that happens, right? We're free to speak our minds. I think Northbrook, even though it was maybe uncomfortable, Northbrook reacted really well. People got to come out and say what they thought. And everybody from each side, while they didn't necessarily agree, they were able to stand on the same street and protest.
Thank you. Gene, same question.
We definitely have to bring the village together more. Last time when I was village president, we started the interfaith service. And we went from temples to the mosques to churches every year. And we did a service and brought people together. Everybody loved that service. And I've talked to a number of different people around town, and they appreciate that. And they want us to get together. Evidently, and I know she wasn't there, but I was at that rally in downtown. And there was some fights. There was some things that started up. I sat with the police officers. It was bad, and that's not acceptable. I don't really feel that the village should have let that sign on public property be up there and cause that controversy. Mr. Goodman, unfortunately, always starts controversy and runs away from it, and it causes problems in the village. We can't do that. We have to bring people together. I sat with a gentleman last night who was a minority. We were at one of our fundraisers, and he explained issues to me, and we talked it out. And I said to him, when I get in, I really want to have your input, and I want you to serve on committees with me and bring people together. And he was asking about some minority-owned businesses. I said, I would welcome that with open arms. So we need to bring the village together, although I think it's a very diverse community now, and most people do appreciate each other. And you don't see fights, you don't see problems, but we can do to build it even a little bit more. And I enjoy working with all of our religious institutions and bringing everybody together. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about a lot of the other religions, and that's great. I think the whole village should be able to do that.
Thank you. Okay, Jean, you will answer the next question first. And the topic is village priorities. That's a longer question. I'm going to read it as it was submitted.
Okay.
What do you see as the top 3 priorities for the village to address in the coming term? And what challenges will affect the village's ability to execute on them? And then there's an explanation here. And the submitter says, to be clear, these are priorities for the village as a whole, not top priorities for village government as a body or for you as a village agent.
Well, I think a couple of the major priorities. Number one, we have to be more transparent. We have to get to our community, talk to them about all these projects that go on, get their input, see what the community wants to see. I think Northbrook Court, our crown jewel, that is a major, major issue. When the builder came in, it seemed like a good project. However, there was no contingency plan. They didn't put, normally the village would have the builder put money down in contingency. So if the project was wrecked and the builder walks away, you'd have to rebuild it. That was not done. Look at the mess that's in Northbrook Court now. We have to rebuild and get stores coming to Northbrook Court. We have to work on the Grainger property. That is also very big. We need to also work on Green Acres and bring in a good project that doesn't hurt the schools at all and doesn't affect the local neighborhoods. I have many of the local residents who have called me on that already. So we have to work on a number of these different things as a whole to bring it together. Those are really major, major projects. We need to bring more police on. There's been a crime increase. And I know Kathryn would disagree, but the budget shows it. They started defunding the police. Now they put an ad in the paper for the police. Why? Because we brought that up. We have to do all those things. We also have to work on finishing the water tower on the west side, fixing the water main so we can bring the pressure up on the west side. That was started many years ago, but nobody realized that the water mains were sold and would break. So we got to take care of the residents on that side of town and bring the water pressure up. So those are all major different things.
Thank you. Kathryn, same question.
Sure, just to correct 2 inaccuracies. Number 1, for the budget for next year, the overall budget, our expenses are down 1%. The police are funded 4% higher. So with respect to the water pressure, that was done 3 years ago. So I'm not sure what Mr. Marks is talking about. I'm going to stick with your question. You said, say 3 things, right? So I'm going to go with 3. 1 is mental health. Mental health issues are pervasive. We've seen a spike with COVID, but we've seen some serious things occur. Typically, Northbrook donates about $250,000 to service organization, not-for-profits that help our police department, fire departments, first responders. This year, we were able to find another $130,000 to help organizations in our community deal directly with the mental health crisis that we're facing now. Another top issue is communications and accessible communications. We need to make sure that as technology changes and as people get their information differently, we continue to keep up and really draw in the interest from people and their opinions. Third item is leadership. Bottom line, we need to find a quality village manager. We also need to make certain that our board, which is a rookie board, right? I'm the senior trustee with 12 years. Bob Israel has 10. Every other trustee has less than 1 term. So we need to make sure that we have good leadership.
Thank you. Okay, I think this is going to be our last question for the evening, and then we'll do your closing remarks. So Kathryn, we're going to start with you, and the question is about flooding. Certain areas of Northbrook are hard hit with flooding when we experience intense storms. As the frequency of these storms increases, what do you think should be done to assist residents with stormwater issues?
Okay, so a couple of things. Number one, in 2009, we did a study, we did a plan, and we implemented an entire multi-million-dollar plan, more than $40 million to address flooding issues. And we've significantly reduced the amount of flooding that there are in multiple neighborhoods. Another thing that we do is we continue to fund where we help residents pay for up to 50% of the installation of an overhead sewer. But we can tie flooding to some environmental initiatives. We can encourage plantings that really do absorb the waters, right? We can promote rain gardens, which is something we're talking about. One rain garden helps a variety of neighbors. So we can work to get residents to help us with the flooding, but we can also, and we've continued to do it, we spend multiple millions of dollars on our plan to eradicate the flooding. And so we've got to continue to do that and make that a priority. And it has been. And I think the proof is in the pudding. Everybody has seen what's been done. The underground storage tanks that were put in. Just continue to work to do those kinds of things. I think we'll definitely continue to see positive results.
Thank you. Gene, same question.
Flooding has been an issue in town for a long time. I can tell you when I was on the fire department, we responded to many floods in the village. We need to work with the township, the road district. They spend a lot of money and a lot of the areas link up to each other. And if we work with them and combine our tax dollars, we can eliminate some of this flooding. What the village should have been doing, and they neglected, they let our management consultant go, where we were getting grants from the state and from the federal government. And I think that's important. We could work with the state and federal government, get more grants to eliminate and alleviate some of this flooding. I know I was trying to work with the park district on the east end of town at one point to put some of the flooding back into the forest preserve districts. And that's something we need to work on too. There's two areas that we can work with the forest preserve district to run water into there. And again, it's natural. It'll take away the flooding and those things we have to do. Fortunately, a couple of my friends are on the Cook County board. I'm sure they would work with us and we could do a number of different things. Yes, I'm very concerned for those residents with the flooding because I've seen it firsthand as a first responder. It's horrible. And we really need to help them alleviate it. And we need to again work with the state and we need to work with the federal government to get us money and help us out.
Thank you. Okay, where our time is just about up. At this point, we're going to give each candidate 90 seconds for a closing statement. And Gene, we're going to start with you.
Thank you. Again, I appreciate for being here. Unfortunately, Kathryn's giving a lot of misinformation and she's going to say, I'm doing misinformation. Well, it's a matter of who's who. We can back it up with facts. We talked about transparency. They weren't transparency until we brought it up. And all of a sudden they're looking for a manager for the first time in ages. They sent out a postcard to look for a manager. We talked about defunding the police where they've actually 3 positions short now. And now they're saying, no, we're not defunding police. We love the police. They love the police so bad when there was a social justice rally here, which should have been, it turned into an anti-police rally. People were walking around carrying signs that said ACAB. For those of you who don't know, it means all cops are bastards. The village wanted the police chief and the police officer to march in this parade. Fortunately, the chief said, no, we're not going to march in an anti-police rally. Yet trustees, Kathryn, I believe President From, they marched in this parade. Marched in the parade with people carrying signs, all cops are bastards. That is horrible. And then we had Joy, who was running. She spoke on the stage with her son. If this was actually a social justice rally, it would have been fine. When you turn this into an anti-police rally, you're against the police. I'm sorry. And that's why they're showing the funding, they're against the police. Some of the trustees on the board now, we know are very anti-police, and I can't be. I've been a first responder for too many years, and I'm not going to let this go. The police are the most important thing. We're having more crime in Northbrook.
Thank you.
So,
Kathryn.
I want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm a fact and data driven person. I have 12 years of voting record to stand behind. I call it like it is. I say it. I was proud to attend the Black Lives Matter rally. I'm a proud supporter of Providence Farm. And at the same time, I can be a proud supporter of the police. There's nothing in my record, verbal, written, voting, or otherwise, that indicates I want to defund the police. And I can assure you in a 100% way that no one on this village board or a future village board is going to be ready, willing, or able to defund the police. It's just silly. And I think it's more of that dog whistle coming out again. So what you're going to get with me is someone who's in favor of inclusion, someone who has practiced and demonstrated transparency, who has a public Facebook page, who holds events to support Northbrook in Northbrook, someone who is continuously out in the community, someone who believes in the community, someone who has a public record that you can absolutely look at and you can tell what kind of a person I am and what kind of information I'll give you. And I will always, always be willing to listen, even if we don't agree, because I think Northbrook will be better if we listen, even if we don't agree. I'm your neighbor and I just want to help Northbrook move forward. So I thank you for the opportunity and would appreciate your vote.
Thank you very much. This concludes our program for tonight. I want to thank the candidates, all the attendees, and the league for putting on this forum to best inform everyone of what their choices are. Thank you, everyone, and good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you. Have a good night.